From Microbe TV, this is TWiP, This Week in Parasitism, episode 265, recorded on September 5th, 2025. I'm Vincent Racaniello. You're listening to the podcast all about parasites. Joining me today from somewhere in Maine, Daniel Griffin.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm up in Bar Harbor, Maine. I'm going to be presenting at the Maine Medical Association annual meeting. Excited to be up here.
Are you going to tell them to get vaccinated?
You know, they do a good job in Maine.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Also joining us from Glasgow, Scotland, Christina Naula.
Hello, I'm in boring old Scotland. Well, not really, but just in my usual place. And I was just recently vaccinated.
COVID, flu, or both?
No, I got the MMR.
MMR?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just because I'd only ever had a single measles vaccine in 1971. So I thought, since I'll be doing a lot of traveling and I don't want to, put anyone at risk, I'm going to get that updated. I'm still waiting for the COVID and flu, but yeah.
I'm going tomorrow to get COVID and flu.
Oh.
Because I'm traveling next week as well. So hopefully I'll be able to get my COVID shot. And because New Jersey apparently is letting it happen. I don't know if you saw, Daniel, New York State governor just said you can get your COVID shots, no problem.
I think she said she's going to sign something. I'm waiting for Governor Huckle to actually go ahead and sign that and make it possible. So, but that really encouraging. Kind of crazy stuff here in the U.S.
It is a bit, although I'm not really eligible for the COVID vaccine under the NHS either, but I can get it privately in a pharmacy. So I just have to pay for it, but that's fine.
Well, if you like these programs where we talk about science, real science, no lies, no misinformation, we'd love your support to continue them. We will always be speaking out about what is correct in science and public health, and we'd love your support. Microbe.tv/contribute. All right, this is a clinical case episode. So, Daniel, what did we have last time?
All right. So let me, for those tuning back in, for those tuning in the first time, we had the case, first day of summer camp, and the children are lined up here in the United States, lined up for a parasite check. Some of the children have certificates that allow them to bypass the screening. Some of the parents are upset about this process, commenting that this is not required by the state and report that this could not be a problem for their children. One by one, the children have their scalps examined, and two of the children are asked to step to the side. The parents of these two children are contacted, told that they must address the identified concern before they can attend the camp. They are treated with a topical therapy on their hair with a repeat in 1 week. The upset parents have several questions that hopefully our listeners can address. So what is this all about? Is anyone suggesting this is a hygiene issue? What is the most sensitive way to look for this problem? How do we know it is cured? Feel free to talk about the life cycle.
All right. Good number of guesses for the end of summer. Thank you all for writing in. Christina, can you take the first one?
I can. Kat writes, Dear Twipsters, long-time listener, first-time guesser. Usually I am several episodes behind, but today I happen to catch the most recent episode. Although there are 3 types of lice that can live on humans, the summer camp kids were likely checked for head louse, Pediculus humanus capitis. They might have also been checked for body or cloth louse, Pediculus humanus corporis. A quick check of the hair and scalp for nymphs or adult parasites with comb that has a small enough teeth to catch the eggs and a magnifying glass is usually enough to spot an infection. Lice have 3 life cycle stages that can be identified in the scalp. Lice eggs, also called nets, are white, yellow, or dark-colored pinhead-sized rice-shaped things that are firmly attached to the shaft of the hair. Nymphs emerge from the eggs after 6 days. They have 6 legs on a body. They go through 3 molts. One that is 2 days after they emerge from the eggs, another 3 days later, and a final molt after 5 days, and are bigger with each molt. They look like smaller version of an adult. Adults are the size of a sesame seed, have 6 legs, and are light to dark brown. Adults mate as soon as they emerge, with females laying eggs 2 days after mating. The adult female can lay 6 to 8 eggs a day for up to 16 days, and adults live for up to 35 days. This is not a hygiene issue. Lice are spread by close contact, most often by sharing things that are worn on or come into prolonged contact with the head, such as hats, scarves, combs, brushes, towels, pillowcases, or shared furniture. There are many over-the-counter treatments that are usually applied to the scalp and hair. To determine if the treatment works, the scalp and hair are checked after the treatment and again a week later to check for nits and lice. Everything that comes into prolonged contact with the head has to be washed or bagged to kill remaining parasites. Hopefully that was enough to get me on the list for a chance to win the signed book, Best Cat.
I like that. Today we have pinhead-sized rice-shaped things, and last time we had poppy seed-like
That's
things.
right, yeah.
Daniel.
All right, David writes, hello, learned oracles of parasitic knowledge. The case presented in TWiP 263 involving screening of summer camp children for a particular parasite seemingly points to head lice, Pediculus humanus capitis. The targeted focus on head hair and the recommended 2 weekly topical treatments matches the guidance in the latest parasitic diseases edition, with the second treatment aimed at killing any remaining eggs or newly emerged lice. Permethrin 1% cream could be applied, would be the typically applied treatment for head lice. Regarding the hair and scalp screening process, the wet combing technique using a fine-toothed comb specifically made for this task is the generally recommended approach. The screening process was noted in videos I found as a little time-consuming, perhaps up to 20 minutes for long or curly hair. So employing a team of screeners for any large group check may be needed. Children infected with head lice are probably getting exposed through close association with other children at school, daycare, or other group settings. The importance of screening in a camp setting is to ensure that an infestation does not suddenly emerge during the time the kids are at camp or afterwards when the kids return back home. The screening process helps to ensure that your non-infected child stays that way. That's my submission for this case. As always, I appreciate the information you share and look forward to each episode. Thank you all for bringing a much needed sanity break to us during these disturbing times. Take care of yourselves. David from Maryland.
Another David writes, Dear TWiP doctors, I will formulate my guess in the form of a limerick. One day on a pre-camp inspection, there was an unwelcome detection. There's no one to blame, no reason for shame. Just deal with the head lice infection. I like that very much.
That's great.
Limerick was also the town where Pulitzer Prize winner Frank McCourt grew up in absolute poverty after being born in Brooklyn. In Angela's Ashes, chapter 12, he writes about lice. The lice are disgusting, worse than rats. They're in our heads and ears, and they sit in the hollows of our collarbones. They dig into our skin. They get into the seams of our clothes, and they're everywhere in the coats we use as blankets. We have to search every inch of Alfie's body because he's a baby and helpless. The lice are worse than the fleas. Lice squat and suck, and we can see our blood through their skins. Fleas jump and bite, and they're clean, and we prefer them. Things that jump are cleaner than things that squat. Wow, that's a good title.
Yep.
While the McCourts were poor even for the Ireland of the day, it illustrates how challenging diseases were less than 100 years ago, with frequent early child death, tuberculosis, typhoid fever, transmitted by lice, as I read in PD7, and conjunctivitis, just to name a few, most of them preventable and sadly making their way up in the charts again. I assume children at camp fell victim to Pediculus humanus capitis only, whereas the novel also includes its cousin Pediculus humanus humanus. As for treatment, I would not recommend shaving the child's head, although this is a remarkably effective strategy. When my daughter's long hairs have been infected, they go at it with fine knit combs and ensuing lotions. My eldest is a camp leader and told me that at camp in Belgium, lice detection is incorporated into a tag game that is played on day one. Whoever gets tagged is the next one to enter the cabinet for lice revision. They're always winners. I already won the book a few years ago, so I hope others may enjoy the same pleasure of winning the richly illustrated that shows the immundicias of the world. Thank you so much for your podcast. You do make a big difference. All right, Christina.
Jason writes, and I actually met Jason on Monday. He mentioned that he had written in, so I'm glad I get to read his guess. Greetings, TWiP hosts. It is a cool 19 degrees C here on San Juan Island in the US Pacific Northwest. In TWiP episode 263's Children's Camp Coiffure Check, the two children pulled aside are likely host to Pediculus humanus capitis head lice. These ectoparasites can be spread person to person via a close head contact or by way of fomites such as combs, brushes, hats, and towels. Head lice do not vector any kind of diseases but often cause pruritus in affected individuals. Treatment is effected with a pediculicide lotion such as permethrin, along with removal of nits with a fine-toothed comb. Since you've requested limericks, here's one. There once was a pair of head lice. The female asked, "Do I entice?" They laid many nits and gave their host fits. That head of hair was paradise. Warm regards from Jason.
That's cool.
And I messed it up a bit by mispronouncing late.
It's all right. Daniel.
That's okay. All right. Sarah writes, "Dear doctors, it feels like fall today in Avon Lake, Ohio. It is 64F and rainy. It makes me want to put my Halloween decorations out, cuddle with my cat, and read a good thriller on the couch.
Oof.
I don't have any stories to tell this time, but my son George loved the Dixon action figure and the Lego Christina that you showed last time. He was very excited that you all liked his action figure idea. We're really hoping to win a signed book too, so here's my guess. I think the parasites in question for episode number 263 are head lice, Pediculus humanus capitis. Again, looking at the back section of parasitic diseases, these lice are spread by head-to-head contact. Hygiene would not be an issue. Head lice can affect anyone regardless of their personal hygiene habits. And they are not typically spread by sharing hats or other inanimate objects, as they cannot survive for very long periods of time away from a host. To diagnose lice or eggs are identified in the hair. The most sensitive approach to detecting an active infestation is to use the wet combing method. For treatment, there are both over-the-counter and prescription shampoos available that contain low levels of insecticides. The treatment should be repeated after 10 days to kill any lice that may have hatched. Combs and brushes should be heat-treated to prevent reinfestation. According to Google, if no live lice are seen after 2 to 3 weeks, you can confirm that the individual is cured. Thanks, Sarah.
This is interesting. So Sarah says they're not typically spread by sharing hats or other inanimate objects, but Jason said can be spread by person to person via close head contact or way of fomites, such as combs, brushes, hats, and towels. So maybe at the end we'll come to the bottom of this, Daniel.
If it turns out, if it is head lice, because we don't know.
Oh, yes, of course, if it turns out.
But if it is head lice, then we certainly will discuss that. And I do have some comments and opinions.
Henrik writes, I suppose the children are victims of head lice, Pediculus humanus capitis, which are not a sign of bad hygiene, relative poverty in developed countries, or bad immune function. The method of choice for diagnosis is combing the hair out, which is in part therapeutic as well. Afterwards, topical therapy without medication, but with physical measures. Dimeticon, which decreases the surface tension of the breathing tubes of the lice. Conventionally, head lice are supposed not to transfer infectious diseases, in contrast to the body louse, which transmits R. prowazekii and also Bartonella quintana. The circle is hemimetric, metabolic. That is, larvae are just smaller and do not completely change anatomy until becoming imogens. Best wishes from Rainy Tübingen. Daniel.
I think it's me, isn't it? Or is it
Go
Daniel?
for it, Christina. It's all you.
No, it's you. It's Christina. It's you. You're right.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
you.
Eyal writes, Dear Vincent and the sages of the eukaryotes, greetings from Sydney and the land down under, where the rains are fierce and the leeches chunder. Oh, I don't like leeches. As a proud father of 3 children, I believe I have a fair idea of what the parasites are, head lice. Although being bold, I haven't had any personal experience in the last 20 years. From what I recall, lice treatments kill nymphs and adults, but not the eggs. Since the eggs hatch in 7 to 10 days and it takes another week before they mature enough to reproduce, a second treatment after that window is essential to break the cycle. Last month, I had a ticking case of procrastination as I was training for a 10-day, 200-kilometer hike. Oh, fortunately, I came back without any new arachnid neighbours. As far as I know, leeches don't carry human parasites, though after a week of drinking filtered stream water, I'm still keeping an eye out for symptoms, just in case. One curiosity I'd like to share. In Sydney, tick-caused alpha-gal syndrome is fairly common. The advice here is either freezing the tick or using an over-the-counter ointment called Lyclear, 5% permethrin, about $15 for 30 grams, which kills the tick almost immediately and it drops off within 12 hours. I've always wondered why that isn't available more widely. Similar story with pinworms. Here you can buy 5-pound packs of mebendazole gummies, chocolate flavoured, and the problem's solved. Warm regards. And he's sending us some photos from the harsh, beautiful Australian landscapes.
Nice.
And it is nice, yep.
Yeah, beautiful shots.
Daniel.
All right, Rod writes, Dear TWiP team, regarding the case from TWiP 263, the children are most likely suffering from an infestation of head lice, Pediculus juvenis capitis. These differ from body lice in their behavior while being morphologically similar. They spend their entire life on their human host, inhabiting the scalp. When a few weeks old, they are mature and they lay eggs known as nits attached to the hair shaft a few millimeters from the skin. In warmer climates, the eggs may be attached a little farther along. They can lay 100 or so eggs in a lifetime. They are transmitted from host to host when heads come into contact, such as when children are playing together. Combing with fine-toothed loose comb may remove insects and possibly nits. Treatment with permethrin or permethrin shampoo for a couple weeks is usually effective. There are numerous species of lice, all obligate ectoparasites of either birds or mammals, and are highly host-specific. As a biology undergraduate in London back in the 1980s, I spent a summer dissolving squirrel pelts in sodium hydroxide solution and identifying and counting the ectoparasites. They had been carrying mostly lice and also some fleas. Warm regards from Alto Minho, North Portugal. Rod.
Nice. North Portugal. I bet the weather is lovely in Portugal now. It's my turn. Justin writes, Hello, dear hosts. For the case of the parasite within the hair of children, I would guess the head louse. It's interesting to note that humans are susceptible to 2 species of louse, one which infects the head or body and one which is a pubic hair specialist. I wonder how these interesting niches developed and if it resulted from competition between the species. Humans as a microcosm of evolution. It's sad to hear that there is still so much stigma around lice and hygiene, particularly as it seems lice prefer clean hair. Thanks for another foray into the ectoparasites and another great episode. Christina.
Ben writes, Dear TWiPers, the children are being screened for head lice. To monitor and control lice in a sensitive manner, one could take several steps. First, screening everyone does strike me as egalitarian and as probably the most effective plan. It may be prudent to inform the students and parents ahead of time that the screening will take place. One should emphasize that the lice are not indicative of poor hygiene and are nothing to be ashamed of. Depending on the age of the children, simply educating them about not sharing hats, clothing, and bedding would be useful. This education should include instructions to wash and dry at high heat all items from school in the event lice were detected on any child. If one wanted to do the inspection subtly, perhaps a ruse would be acceptable, a swim cap fitting or something similar. The ruse would need to include an excuse for a child to go home and for all the children to wash their hats. The ruse should not extend to the parents. In my view, this may be an acceptable way to reduce bullying among the children. However, the horrific history of ruses related to body lice screening gives me pause. If we want to really get creative, we could monitor the items of clothing after the initial screening. Something like a Burlese funnel could help, though I could not find a record of anyone using this soil insect collection device for lice. For the treatment guide, here is a guide from Johns Hopkins University, and there's a link. In consultation with your medical professional, a pyrethroid shampoo may be used. A reapplication is needed because the adulticides do not kill the immature stages. A knit comb may also help. Lindane, an organochloride, is a second-line option that kills the nits. I wonder if an IGR such as methoprene, the plus in Frontline Plus, could be added by the shampoo manufacturers to make a single treatment intervention that may be safer than Lindane. Such a cocktail with multiple mechanisms of action should also slow resistance. Interestingly, the NHS website instructs not to use permethrin, and we have a link for that. My pharmacy here carries a shampoo with dimethicone. This is a silicone oil that presumably mechanically interferes with the lice. Maybe it interferes with their cuticle. I have no idea about its efficacy, but it would certainly have a different mechanism of action to the active ingredient in the US. To ensure the lice are gone, inspection after the last treatment should be conducted weekly for 1 month after the last treatment. Thank you. Ben in 14 degree C, Liverpool, and he is a returning champion. Continues. Regarding the last episode from last week, if memory serves, humans are generally a dead-end host for Borrelia, so there should be no risk of breeding resistant Borrelia while treating patients. You would have to start a mass drug administration program to the mice in order for this to be a problem. That said, one should be concerned with breeding resistant to antibiotics in whatever else happens to be a patient. Personally, I make a point of showering after walking in the woods. I find doing a thorough tick check easier in that context. Also, the forceps should be held parallel to the skin. This is in all diagrams, but I and all the other guessers omitted this.
Yeah, so I will comment about so as far, and this is an excellent point about the resistance to antibiotics. It really is, we're worried about resistance in other organisms, right? So, pneumococcus and MRSA, so our Staph aureus and others. So, this is an excellent point. It's not really it's not the Borrelia that's going to become resistant to the other pathogens. All right. Rana writes, hello, I would like to solve the parasitic case 263. I hope to be entered to win the book. That would be precious with Dixon's signature. The children were lining up to get their scalp checked for lice, specifically Pediculus humanus capitis. It's very transmissible person to person, and the camp does not want an infestation. The good news is that the head lice do not transmit disease. Only the body lice spread disease. Nonetheless, the head lice spreads from close person-to-person contact with someone who has a lice infestation. I can imagine it getting spread to campmates rapidly if not treated. Generally, one can see that it's lice because one can see the nits, i.e. eggs, clinging to the hair, or you can see that it's not dandruff because dandruff stays, whereas lice are crawling on the hair. The more sensitive way to know that the camper does not have lice might be to do a lice check before arriving to camp. Lice can be treated by over-the-counter or prescription treatments. I had a brush-in pun with lice. My sisters and I, had lice's children, and my mom combed through my hair with a smelly substance. These days, I read that lice can be treated with permethrin and keep combing through for days to make sure no more eggs, or apply ivermectin lotion to dry hair. I read there are also other prescriptions such as spinosad and malathion. Personally, I never forget when I got the call from the school nurse telling me to pick up my child, immediately thinking the worst, I was calmed down when I heard that the issue was lice, not something worse. I pick her up in tears, and on the shameful way back to the car, we hastily remove her expensive cardigan and throw it in the trash can. I then think for a moment, how am I to know when the lice is gone and it's safe to come back? We decide to go back into the school and ask the nurse. The nurse says, you should know when you don't see moving white dots or clingy eggs. So then and there, I look at her scalp in front of the nurse, and we both see that she currently has nothing moving on her head. The white specks are dandruff. She, in fact, does not have lice, and she can go back to class, though mortified that everyone thinks she's the kind of kid going to school with lice. There is a stigma that dirty, unwashed children are associated with lice. That is not true, and in fact, I hear that lice prefer a clean scalp. Thanks for your work, TWiP, and I'm sorry to hear about the setback for those children who had to take steps not to start camp. I also wonder about the campers who got false negatives at the camp checkup and will come down with lice next week. Thanks, Rana, local from Long Island. And I hope they went back and grabbed the cardigan, right?
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
yes.
I hope so too. Yes, I hope you got that cardigan. All right, one more from Michelle and Alexander. Dear lice enst parasitologist, the children seem to be suffering from an infestation with head lice, Pediculus humanus capitis. This is not a hygiene issue. Paraphrasing Dr. Griffin, it is not a poor disease. It's not an unhygienic disease. It's an infectious disease. The most sensitive way to detect infestation is to comb the wet hair with a metal lice comb from foot to end and wiping on a paper towel. This test has a sensitivity about 95% and is superior to dry combing or inspection. Treatment is applied on day 0 and day 7 to 10. To confirm treatment success, repeat wet combing every 3 to 4 days. When no lice or nits are found on 2 consecutive combings, cure is confirmed. Thank you for this great case. All the best, Michelle and Alexander from the First Vienna Parasitology Passion Club. All right. Daniel, everyone seems to have guessed the same thing.
Yeah, I think we're all, well, I should just do, you two, what are you thinking? Christina, Vincent, do we have any outliers you want to throw at us?
No, I'm in agreement with all the listeners and writers, and also we do have personal experience in my house. And in fact, I checked my medicine cupboard, and we still have a bottle of Hedrin, which is the drug that is the treatment that has been used in the UK, and it's actually a silicon coating thingy. I think it's not an insecticide. So it coats and drowns the head lice and eggs. It doesn't chemically kill them. So yeah, I found a bottle earlier on. I checked. It wasn't me who had the lice. Just in case.
All right, Vincent?
Yeah, I think that was quite clear, having their scalps examined at a summer camp. This is very clearly head lice. And, we've done head lice before on TWiP, so it was all quite familiar.
Okay, great. All right. Well, so yes, that's what was going on here, and that's what they found. But I think several topics were raised, and so let's try to address those. So, a couple of the things to think about is so the life cycle, and we're going to start from the very beginning of the life. How do you acquire the lice? And this is where we sort of had the differing ideas. So people have been told for time immemorial that you get it from clothing, from sharing hats, all the rest. Most available evidence suggests that that's really not how we're seeing transmission. And some people commented the fact that the lice really, they do not survive well off of the human body. So unless you basically take the hat right off your head and put it on someone else's, the idea of like hanging your cloaks and your hats, and then at the end of the day, we really don't think that's what's going on. It's really that close contact where the lice are directly going from one person to the other. So you get exposed. Now there's these multiple molts. And this is going to be really important too. There's sort of 2 aspects to the life cycle. One is the nits, the eggs are laid really close to the scalp, and maybe a little farther away in a warmer climate, but maybe just a little farther away. So that's where you're looking. You're looking close to the scalp. If you're seeing nits that are farther out, you really think about how fast hair grows. And the adults living for a certain period of time, and then maybe the eggs taking a certain period of time before they might hatch. We're really looking for the fresh, viable eggs that are close to the scalp. The other is we're actually looking for the actual adults. And so what people bring up too, and this is getting maybe more into the diagnosis, the best way to look is the wet combing technique. It has a much better sensitivity than just dry combing. And if you've ever done this, the adults will run away. And so it's a whole process of basically moving your way through the hair and trying to see the nits, but also it is very satisfying and a little bit, of an experience to actually visualize those adults trying to scamper away as you're doing the checks. I think we heard a little bit about the different treatments. We in the U.S. love to use our poisons, but yeah, there's no issue with mechanical cure, right? So you can treat this just with repeated wet combing to get rid of the eggs and actually to get rid of the adults. You can drown them, using something basically is going to suffocate them. So yeah, there's a couple different treatments, right?
I know, we just caught and drowned them here in the UK. How weird.
Yeah, but that works. That's a great way to do it.
All right. That was an easy one, Daniel.
All right. Well, we can give away a book, right?
Yeah. I just want to say it's really important to talk about head lice because there is a stigma even now. And, when you're the kid that comes home with the lice, it's never good. Someone was always going to just kind of look down on you. So I think actually it's really important to have cases like that. Easy, but, very common as well. Lice are everywhere. And we've had them in our house several times. So, yeah. And what is it with the clean hair, Daniel? Do you know about that? Because I've heard that as well, but I don't actually know.
Yeah. So what I was saying, I appreciate that our listeners sent in those comments because, this is not a hygiene issue. This is not about dirty hair. Now, we always throw in that, but if you have clean hair, they actually prefer clean hair. This is a sign that you're really, I don't know if that's actually true. That's something nice that we say.
Yeah, I just wondered whether that's maybe just to counterbalance the stigma that is associated with the lice.
Oh.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. Well, let's give away a book. We have 8, how many guesses? 8 guesses. So let's generate a random number between 1 and 8. And the number is 8. Number 8 is the winner. Who's that?
Rona.
Rona is the winner. Rona, just send us your address. Just send an email to TWiP at microbe.tv with TWiP265 winner in the subject line. Send us your address, and we'll send you a copy of Parasitic Diseases 7. I do believe we have some signed copies left.
Yeah, she's a local Long Islander, so.
Maybe you could deliver it to her, Dan.
I was thinking that. Yeah, just run it on over if it's not too far a drive.
All right. I see you have a hero, Christina.
I do, but I know Daniel is on a tight schedule, and we also have 2 emails. So I don't know, shall I do the hero or shall we do the email or shall we try both?
What's your schedule, Daniel?
Yeah, I've got a hard stop in about 15 minutes. So maybe we will save the hero. This is actually something we've talked about before. So maybe we'll save.
Okay.
But we do have a new case, I think, from Christina brought in from.
Yes. So shall I do that, or do you want to read the emails?
Go ahead and do the case, yeah.
Okay, so I have a case from Eyal, who has provided us with a couple of cases. Some of them were really challenging, I remember. So here we have a 43-year-old female who traveled to Brazil in May 2025 for a 2-week dance class. The dance school is located in a farm 2-hour drives west of Rio de Janeiro. Upon her return to Israel, she started feeling pricking and moving under the scalp on the back of her head. I just started feeling itchy too, actually, reading that. She noted 3 non-healing furuncles on the back of her head. A month after she returned, movement and pricking in the back of her scalp increased. The furuncles enlarged and produced serious serous discharge. How do you pronounce that? Serous. Serous, thank you. Several days before her emergency department visit, she thinks an object dropped from the back of her scalp, but being outdoors, she could not locate the object. On physical examination, she is afebrile and her vitals are normal. And on the back of her head, 2 indurated furuncles were detected under the hair on the back of her head. Serous discharge was produced by pushing the furuncles. A non-surgical office procedure led to immediate recovery and confirmed the diagnosis. So Eyal's question here for us and our listeners is, what was the parasite? And I think we can probably go as far as hazarding a guess towards the species. And then also, what was the procedure that was used?
So Daniel, what is a furuncle?
So the terminology is interesting. So it goes back to really infections where some sort of a pathogen will actually go through a hair follicle, and you'll end up with an initial collection that is a single hair follicle in size, and then they might coalesce to be several, and that becomes a carbuncle. So furuncle moving to carbuncle.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Not nice word. I don't really like furuncle and carbuncle.
Yeah, so you're starting off with a very small and then moving into a larger.
All right. Well, since Eyal is not here, we can't ask any questions, right, Christina?
Well, you can try and ask me, but I might not have an answer. Try. We did talk a little bit.
I feel like we've got what we need, right?
I think we do have what we need.
Well, I wanted to know if she had any bug bites.
He did not mention that.
I presume.
I'm sure she did, because she was in the countryside on a farm.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to say yes.
Was she HIV negative?
I don't know.
I just have to ask that every time.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. What did she eat?
Yeah, what did she eat? We don't know what she ate.
We don't know, no.
Oh, well, okay. So this will be posted. What's the timeline here? Does this get posted in 2 weeks or 1 week, Daniel? I forget.
I think we got to try to post this pretty soon to try to get more time for the next guest. So we'll see if we can get this posted as soon as possible.
So we get it posted next week. Today is September 5th, and then you'll have about 2 weeks. You have a couple of weeks to get it in. We have 2 emails I'd like to read here today. Why don't we do that? Christina, why don't you take that first one?
Okay, Manus writes, I was saddened to hear of the passing of Lawrence Tetley during Christina's Hero segment yesterday evening. Dr. Tetley's unit in the Joseph Black building basement taught me so much about microscopy and the patience necessary to get good results in science. He taught me 2 very powerful lessons. You can't tell something is in focus until it is not. So go to a higher power than you need, check what you see, then bring it back a little. Perhaps the hardest lesson I learned was surprisingly not to get too excited too quickly when seeing something novel. In those days, the mid-90s, you had to reset the vacuum on the TEM, trans-electron microscope, before taking your pictures using film cameras. If you took the picture before getting a good vacuum, it would kick in midway through the exposure and you would ruin precious film and time. I'd never thought about that, actually. Thank you, Christina, for having the bravery to talk about your hero when his passing was so very recent. And that's Manus.
Daniel, can you take the other one, please?
Sure. Emma writes, Dear Vincent and Daniel and all at TWiP, thank you so much for featuring our paper on TWiP 264. My colleagues have now decided I am famous. It's a real honor, and I am delighted that you enjoyed the work. Our mouse studies probably say very little about the human condition. One aspect that they may help with is trying to know whether those that are seropositive but with no clinical symptoms actually have cysts in their brain at all, as we now have a signature for these cysty EVs that can then be detected circulating in the blood and CSF. And Vincent, you're absolutely correct in that we may need to start determining if any part of infection or behavior is dependent on this process. We can target the specific parasite proteins we found in the EVs and the EV mechanisms. Grant writing in progress. Perhaps studying a parasite in the brain will give me an in with the health secretary who seems to be dealing with some co-infections. All the best. And thanks again, Emma. That's Emma Wilson.
All right. Anyway, you can write in, folks, anytime. TWiP@microbe.tv. You don't have to just have a case guess. You can write in your questions or comments like that. We'd love it. So that's TWiP 265. We will look forward to your guesses. You can send them to TWiP@microbe.tv. The show notes are at microbe.tv/TWiP. If you like our work, again, we'd love your support. Microbe.tv/contribute. Daniel Griffin, Columbia University Irving Medical Center, parasiteswithoutborders.com. Thank you, Daniel.
Oh, thank you. And everyone be safe.
Christina Nowla is at Glasgow University. Christina-Nowla on Blue Sky. Thank you, Christina.
Well, thank you. That was a fun case. And thank you, Daniel, for presenting it.
I'm Vincent Racaniello. You can find me at microbe.tv. I'd like to thank the American Society for Microbiology for their support of TWiP and Ronald Jenkins for the music. You've been listening to This Week in Parasitism. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon.
Christina, you want to do it?
Okay. So, another TWiP is parasitic.
A little more energy, Christina.
Okay, right. Shall I do it again?
Try it again.
I didn't jump in because I did it last time. Oh, no, the second last time. Another TWiP is parasitic.